He's passed Leonard. That?
Yeah. There you go. Thanks. Mine doesn't do that. My knee. Hello, Council. Good morning. So following the meeting the other day, the administration immediately met for some time in the flex room just to go through some of your expectations, and we did go through line by line, basically. And then the SLT spent some time yesterday, mainly the day, largely on corporate services, going through additional information and finalized this morning. We just want to share with you what we have, and we'll get your feedback and we'll go from there.
Welcome. The PowerPoint today is only, 11 pages or so it shouldn't take us too long to go through. And then we do have another document of comparison data from those comparable municipalities that we can go through after that as well. Okay. So first, council did ask for some of their departmental professional development budgets. I do want to go through this in a little bit more detail just to make sure this was the first year, that everything kind of flows through right, and this is where everyone's sitting at. The next one is council's payroll hours. So we did start tracking our new hours this year, so this does show out the different AMP meetings. The second column is all your standard meetings that you would have attended, any committee meetings, things like that. The third column is any non-chargeable hours that were identified by yourselves. The fourth column is the professional development hours that would have been spent going to conferences or other type of training type of activities. And then finally, your travel time column. We'll continue to track these year over year as we go forward. Yes.
I'm just curious, in the AMP column,
Yes.
like 100% attendance, but Councillor Wing has two more?
I do see that, yes.
Oh, okay, so just
Yeah.
a,
So we are going to look into that. This was
Okay.
just pulled out yesterday, so it could be that there was an error made
okay.
with some hours. or
Somebody hit a
things like
6
that.
instead of an 8 on the,
No, so it is 18, so I think there was an error in something else, yeah.
Like I was.
So we were also asked what those 1% tax increases are each year, that if we were to increase by 1%, what that dollar amount is. So in 2020, you can see that that was 76, then 77, 80, 87, 94, and then in 2025, we are seeing it at that $101,000. But you can tell that those also correspond with our own tax increases. So in 2020 and 2021, there was very little, and then we were able to index up our tax increases over the last couple of years. So we were also asked about our future vehicle purchases. This is specifically to our capital budget. So I did identify, or Director Kennedy shared this with me. So in 24 and 25, we are looking at those 5 vehicle purchases. In 25, that doesn't include that trailer purchase though. And then you can see in 26, 1, 27, 2, and so on and so forth. And even you can tell that there's a couple years where actually we don't intend to be purchasing any vehicles in those years. Okay, so the next 2 slides are loan comparisons for the potential loan for the Aquatic Center. I was asked to do a loan for $6 million and then a loan for $8 million with some different options for different lengths. So we did pick 10, 15, 20, and 25 for both sets. The interest rate does index up for each when the length indexes up. And so I just identified the annual payment as well on the final column, the total interest paid over the entirety of the loan. So you can see that that's at $6 million, and then we have $8 million at the same. Okay. So as CAO Becker did indicate, yesterday or on Wednesday after the session ended, we did go sit down and did go line by line, and I can show you the areas that we adjusted to the budget. So these are it here. So we have removed the Clean Tech Innovation as it's currently an unconfirmed project, and we do need to break out some of the details before council and really design out what we want to do before we kind of move forward with that. We did discover that the town app is actually only $5,000, down from 15, so we cut that down by $10,000. One of our new staff, we would be anticipating hire that a little bit later in 2025, so we do look to save about $20,000 there. Later in 2025 is March, not necessarily fall. The cadet program actually is only starting in October, so we were able to bridge those costs from 25 to 26. Supplies and goods, we found an area in emergency management that was unspent, and we are going to carry those dollars over to 25 as well. We have an operating project in planning that is our placemaking project, and through discussions, we did lower it from $40,000 down to $20,000 this year. Just anticipation into actually what we plan on doing in that area. We don't have our art report back yet, and what is being decided for the corner lot on that downtown area is very minimal this year with just some, some picnic tables and things like that. However, in the following year, we would like, that will probably remain back up at 40 in a future year. We did remove the operating project from the aquatic center with the intention that we likely will hopefully go through with that capital project this year as well. And then just two small areas where we were able to find some increased revenue, both in the pool for season tickets and aquafit tickets. So we were able to save $213,000, $250 and $250. However, we then went in and did add in transfers to reserves. So we were able to maintain the $200,000 transfer to reserve. So what does that mean? That means we're now at a 3.06 tax increase and a 1% franchise fee increase. And that is broken out as follows. So the aquatic center increase is $189,399. Our reserve investment is sitting at $200,000. And our operational increase for this year is only $30,477. And it's broken out as, for tax increase dollars, it's sitting at $309,147. And our Fortis franchise fee for 1% is giving us $110,000. And I do have 4 different options for those tax increases and how they impact monthly charges for the consumers. And I did index them all at just a 4% assessment growth. Again, we don't know what that's going to be. We will have those individualized property assessment growths back in the springtime. But we are just saying a moderate 4% growth, and then we go with a 3.06 tax increase. So the utility bill increase is $560. The taxes at a 3.06 tax increase is $17.25, and a 1% tax increase, or franchise fee increase, is $1.26. So for that total of $24.11 per month increase for those consumers. If we lower the tax increase to 2.56, so that would be effectively lowering $50,000 from one of those boxes, the monthly difference goes down to $22.86. If we further reduce the tax increase to 206, so that's removing $100,000 from one of those areas, it goes to $21.61. And then if we go down by $150,000, the increase to that consumer is $20.36. And there's just a nice quicker look at those different monthly increases with the different potential tax increases for a total monthly increase. So does anyone want to talk about any of those options?
Director Vickers, can we just look at the slides again just a little bit more slowly?
Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. We can definitely print them out, absolutely, and share them. But we can go through them all slower right now too.
Can we take a break and print them? Is
Sure.
that okay?
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay. So we'll go through all the slides again now that everyone has a copy. So the first slide, again, is council professional development budgets. So these are things like if you went to a conference outside of the AB Munis conference. So anything like that. We have council payroll hours on slide 2. So these are all the hours that were generated from payroll for, I believe, since February of this year, of when we kind of implemented it. We did bring forward a 1% tax increase for the years of 2020 to 2024, or what the one tax increase would generate each year annually. So we do have those listed in the third column there for everyone. We were asked to identify our future capital vehicle purchases. So we do have that identified all the way up to 2034. You can see that in 24 and 25, we did have some higher numbers. However, that was just to get us within our policy of on our 15-year vehicle replacement. So after this year, we are kind of up to where we need to be, and we are just on our gradual replacement after that. So the next 2 slides are the loan comparisons for specifically to the Aquatic Center. We have identified the current project as sitting around that $12 million. We do have a grant out there that we've applied for that would be for around $6 million. So the balance would be left for us to fund. So we have identified what the loans would be. At the $6 million, it's the base project of what has been identified in the projects from Director Jenkins. So we did do a second comparison at $8 million just for any other things that we wanted to add to the project, like replacing the tile and all that kind of stuff. So we were asked to do different lengths. So we did do 4 different options for each loan, 10, 15, 20, 25. The interest rate does increase for each year that we have. So we did identify the interest amount at the back column there. So you can see a loan amount for $6 million. If we do it over 25 years, it would add about $5 million to the cost of that project. And then in comparison, here's the $8 million loan.
Director Vickers, sir, do you know, like, let's say once the core renovations were done, like, are there opportunities potentially for grants for other things? I know in the original plan we looked at, there's an idea of the Ninja Cross included in that, or part of it, as an idea. But
So when we do come back to council with the potential sort of scope additions, we can look at that. As far as I'm aware, there's not necessarily grant opportunities for things like Ninja Cross. If we do have any user groups that identify potential projects, they can access CFIP. That's how we ended up with the start blocks from the swim club, those types of things. There might be opportunities for some small grants there. I am exploring some other sort of smaller grants. There's up to $500,000 through MCCAC, and then there's various sort of private grants in that $100,000 range, whether it's UFA or those types of businesses that have smaller community grants. And then even in our existing pool, some of the service clubs have donated sort of components of equipment like that. You know, the Kinsman provided the climbing wall that's in there right now, those types of things.
Director Vickers, may I ask, I can't put my finger on it right now, but we did put some money into reserve last year for the Aquatic Center. Can you remind me about how much that is? And I appreciate that would be used as a payment in the future, but what is sitting in that reserve? Ish?
Yes, let me look. Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Wing. So on the final slide in your binder under reserves, it does show the different reserves. And under the restricted for special purpose, we do see a debenture line in there. And you can see that the beginning balance for 2025 is $1.6 million. And with the addition of the $589,000 in 25, we'll end up with an end balance of just over $2.2 million to go towards the Aquatic Center. And so that will either go towards future payments or lump sum payments of entire projects, or it will go towards paying the debenture payments in the future.
So I have a question related to the interest rate itself. As the Bank of Canada rate has been going down, how does this interest rate track it? Does it,
So these, Mayor Barkley, through to Councillor Bates, these are actual interest rates from yesterday through the Loans to Local Authorities website. So if we were to sign a loan yesterday, these would have been our interest rates.
but have we kind of monitored that like 6 months ago when the Bank of Canada, I don't know what it was it 3/4 higher or 1 higher? Do these drop in accordance, or they got a big delay on them, or what?
So they have dropped a little bit in the last year. I'll have to do some digging and see what the economists say where these rates will go, but it's kind of hard because this is a government program.
Well, there's also, though, Director Vickers, and I don't know whether it's been changed, but the provincial government announced that they were lowering
Right,
the cost as well.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't know what that will look like. I haven't heard anything of what those numbers are gonna be, how close they are gonna go down.
Well, I think they said how much it was. It seemed to me like a 1/4 of a point or something, because they'd added a 1/4, I believe, 25 basis points onto the spread.
I'll look to see
Yeah.
what time that is going to come into
Okay.
effect.
well, no,
Not that it's huge,
and
but-
I'm not trying to imminently make today's budget decisions based on that. I'm just curious, like, I would have thought they would go down, almost track it from such a major source as this.
And I can say
And-
our loan for the Southwest Industrial is a 10-year loan, and we did have a 4.98 or 89%
that's locked
for
in.
that. Yeah, that is locked in, yeah.
What I'm
What's that
talk-
rate?
4 point, I believe it's 89, 4.98, yeah.
Okay.
But
so
it-
we've
our-
gone
that was
down
a
10
10,
basis
yeah.
points then. So it's not tracking.
Not yet. I don't know if it's happened yet, so we'll do a bit of research, but
Yeah, it
again,
just seems unfair in the sense that consumer loans and stuff are certainly tracking and yeah, it's hard to predict where it's going. I think the federal government's events yesterday just probably caused the next rate to not be 0.5, it'll be 0.25 is what I heard, but
could be.
yeah, I'm just curious as to, because I'm not sure when we would maybe do this. We don't know, but
No,
it might be, it wouldn't be
this
first
time
quarter.
next year sometime.
Yeah, so it'd be a while. Okay, no,
We'd
thank
likely
you.
want to hold off as long as possible to save as much interest costs as we can. We'll likely go through traditionally, probably some of the money we have sitting in that reserve and spend that out first. So hopefully the loan will be as low as possible. We will source out any grants and any other types of funding we can before we want to take out a loan. The debenture will be our last resort.
Well, and I guess the point I'm making is if we could follow this and get we might want to time our loan to it, even if we still had something in reserve, because it might start tracking back up again. Anyway, thank you.
I see the city of Calgary, they did their own bond and saved millions on borrowing costs. But, you know, we're not big enough, obviously, to do
Yes.
that, but
Yes. I know that, like, you can see the interest rates on those loans are quite significant. It would be more advantageous to try and save up as much money first and then spend that before we have to take out a loan. Maybe the loan only has to end up being $3 million at the end of, in 2027 kind of thing, depending on where we're able to get those funds from.
yeah, well, there's two thoughts of that. There's always a opportunity cost to doing everything in one
right.
project, and then you leave others that are unfunded, right? And
That's right, I don't
trying
want
to
everyone.
balance everything.
We will have another project similar to this for the arena in 2029, 2030, that will be bringing the same kind of documentation to you that we need to start bridging in some debt payments to pay for the fixes at the arena that's gonna come. I think it's a $7 or $8 million project coming up. So we'll be bringing that too,
Plus Southwest.
plus the Southwest residential, yes. Okay, so this next page is just areas where we did adjust. So again, that Clean Tech Innovation Project, it really is an unconfirmed project for us right now. We don't have a project scope. What staff would we need to hire? What projects would we do? What initiatives would be undertaken? So we do want to take a little bit of time to design that out and really kind of talk about what we would need to do for that project and how that would impact our service levels, our capacity, what we would need to increase to achieve this project. And once we kind of determine that, we will bring it forward for council's consideration. So the town app, we are keeping it. It's not being cut, but we did identify that the cost is not $15,000. That was some setup costs. So really it is an annual cost of $5,000. So we were able to save $10,000 already. One of our new staff, it would be a little bit later, higher in 2025 in around that March time. So we are able to save approximately that $20,000 mark. We do want to start that cadet program in the fire department next year. However, it's not going to be starting until October. So we are able to bridge those costs, $10,000 in 25 and then $10,000 in 26, just to be more accurate of when we're actually having those expenses. We are just carrying over some supplies and goods in our emergency management department. We are lowering the operating project in our planning department. So it's that placemaking department that was originally $40,000. We are going to lower it to $20,000 this year. We currently don't have our art report back yet, and that would give us a lot of guidance in this area. As well, there is some dollars in that area for the downtown lots and just what we're going to do with it. The discussion is it will be kind of minimal this year, a few picnic tables, some things like that we already have. So it'll really just be staff costs kind of getting it set up. We did remove the aquatic center operating project with the anticipation that we are doing the capital project this year. And then just two small areas that we did increase some revenue. Again, the pool department will be majorly changed depending on when we have to close the pool down. If when we start the program, if we don't close the pool down at all next year, it's a full year of operating costs. But if we close it down in June or August or September, then it will, those costs will change accordingly. Does anyone have any questions on any of these programs or areas? Okay. So where we're currently sitting right now, we are sitting at 3.06 tax increase and a 1% franchise fee increase. And the dollars are broken out as follows. So the aquatic center increase is showing $189,399. Reserve investment is sitting at $200,000, and our operational increase is $30,477. And it's broken out as follows. So the tax increase is $309,147, and the Fortis franchise, we're seeing an additional $110,000.
So were you able to estimate the portion of a franchise fee that is levied on non-current taxpayers?
So Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Bates, I reviewed all the documentation that Fortis sends out with their franchise fee calculator. It's not broken out by taxable versus non-taxable. So I did send an email yesterday. Unfortunately, I have not received any confirmation back.
Okay. And just a little reminder, and I don't know what our total franchise fees are now. I think they're in here. Like,
Yes.
it's got to be over 3 million, I think.
For both of them together.
Yeah.
So under the general government tab is where they'll be sitting. And you see our ATCO gas is sitting at just under that 700,000 mark at 698. And Fortis is sitting now at 1,990,000 approximately. That is including that 1% tax increase. So we are sitting about 2.7. So yes, just under that $3 million mark.
Just a statement, but, excuse me. The actual reality is everybody that pays those pays 5% GST on it too. So that is a burden on everybody that goes straight to the federal government and not to our coffers. It's one of the other arguments that I've always used. I also I'm assuming we're still going to see the other communities.
Yes, I do have another document that's
I want to see that, yeah. Thank you.
okay. So I did do some monthly changes for our residents based on the changes that we're implementing. So I do have 4 different options for the tax increase. All of them do include the increases to the utility rates as well as a 1% franchise fee. So our first option is what's currently in the numbers is a 3.06 tax increase, and then you are looking at that 24.11 increase, this is per month, to the consumer. Now, if we index that down to a 2.5, so that would be effectively removing $50,000 from one of those buckets that we showed on this previous screen, on that those middle dollar numbers. So if we remove it by $50,000, we are going down to $22.86 per month. And then again, if we go down to a 2.06, that means removing $100,000 from one of those buckets. We go down to $21.61. And then if we go down to a 1.56, which is removing $150,000 from one of those areas, we go down to $20.36.
Can I give you a little more work to do?
Sure.
It's not hard. If, and I'm just saying if, because I just want to see what this chart looks like. If we added a 1% ATCO,
Okay.
what would the rest of this chart look like?
Absolutely. So ACO Gas only would
It's
generate about $25,000. So I can definitely pull up what that cost would be. It's not going to impact things too much, but I can definitely do that.
If you're gonna do that detail, add the GST onto the consumer.
Add the 4 cents on, please.
No, it's 6.
Okay.
Hi, Director Vickers. I thought the assessment growth was 6%.
Yes, Mayor Berkeley through to Councillor Mazzaro. So we are seeing a total assessment growth of about 6.7%. However, we are unable to determine the breakdown of what portion of that is new builds and what portion is just an old house that is seeing that assessment growth. So I will be able to get that breakdown when I get the full tax roll from the assessors at the end of February. And then I'll be able to tell you what our average assessment growth for older homes are, like a home that was built in '24, what that assessment growth is this year versus just brand new builds on our assessment roll. So a portion of that 6.7 is just new homes built.
Okay. Is it, I've got a stupid question. So if there's like a 10% assessment growth, it's not put equally across all residences. So how is that all determined?
So it would be, so they would look at your specific house and they would see, okay, you're only seeing a 3% assessment increase. And then beside you is a brand new home. So that has assessment increase value on our assessment roll. So even though we may be seeing a 10% increase over the entire roll, it could be half of that is new home builds.
Okay, so the average, say if the average is 10%, that's determined by individual
Yes, that is correct. So someone who did a garage renovation
Yeah.
to their homes and increased the value by $50,000 because they built that garage, that is assessment growth. So that's, but that's not, that you've increased the value of your home, so that assessment growth should be there. So the 4% growth we're talking about there is just standard growth. You did nothing different to your home and it just increased from one year to the next.
Okay, thank you.
So we will be able to kind of break that down and say, well, we may be seeing a 6.7 increase, but actually 3 of that is actually for new home builds and new assessment, and then the balance is for old assessment growth. So I don't have that breakdown right now, unfortunately, but I will have that when I bring the mill rate for your guys' review.
Do you think, Director Vickers, that we should be using 6.5? I mean, regardless whether it's new or not new, people are still,
But we don't know what those individual properties are likely not seeing a 6.7% increase. Because if we have to look at our total assessment, and if we remove out all of our brand new assessment dollars, so all the new homes that were built, any new commercial properties that were built through the year, and then we can see what our assessment growth is, and that number would likely be smaller than 6.7%.
but what you showed us the other day is residential was probably getting an 8+%
That's
increase, and
Yeah, so we're seeing a
non-res.
6.7 total assessment
Yeah.
increase, and then it's broken out by res and non-res.
Yeah.
But again, we don't have the breakdown on what's new assessment versus what's old assessment yet.
no, I understand that. Yeah.
Pivoting off of that, I guess if the residential is estimated to be about 8, and like we didn't build that many homes, and if you just look at residential, it's got to be more than 4. I mean, the amount of new stuff is, as opposed to our total inventory, can't be
It's
that
also
big.
sales data. It's also increased sales.
Well, and the other reality too is if somebody sells 2 or 3 homes high in my neighborhood and low in another neighborhood, somebody might get 2% or less. Somebody might even get a decrease. I doubt that'll happen this year, but somebody's going to get 10 or 12. Like, it's all over the map, right? I mean, maybe we should ask our assessor, but I'm sure he'll be able to tell you that there's certain areas of town that, yeah, why wouldn't we ask him?
I guess depends if that's the council's objective is to balance your budget based on assessment growth per
No, it's just the reality of this
classification
chart.
properties.
It's the reality of the chart.
Yeah,
It's
it's
probably,
important information to understand the impacts, definitely. And it's there for your consideration, but do you fluctuate your budget accordingly based on assessment growth or lack of?
no, it's me thinking, what is the capacity of our taxpayer? And I know they're all over the map too. Some people could afford triple whatever we're gonna do here at the end of the day. Other people aren't gonna be able to afford it. So it's just a matter of trying to work all that into the, into the balance.
Would you guys like to see our other sheet that we have with all the comparable data?
No, before we lose that, is it not possible to ask our assessor, on average, what does he think residential assessment in the non-new builds is going up?
So we did ask that, and he said that
It's
he will
4%?
provide, he will provide that information to us at the end of February.
Oh,
So he doesn't have that information because the assessment date is effectively the end of December, so.
well, I'm not looking for what his actual is. So how do we get the idea that the assessment's going up about 6.7%?
Well, so that is, he gives us an estimate on our assessment data as
Right.
whole numbers. So on residential single-family homes, this is what they estimate as of, I believe, June 1st, and they give us an estimate. They will give us a true-up assessment data
Right.
at the end of February.
But can you give us an estimate of that 6.7, how much of it's gonna be new homes and how much of it's gonna be on the old homes?
Yeah, we did ask that question. We sent a request over to our assessors to ask if they had an average assessment growth, and they said they would provide that to us at the end of February.
And so the average that administration is presenting to you is 4%,
Yes.
for that average, right?
Yes, we did want to provide some kind of assessment
Gonna be higher,
growth.
gonna be lower, and so let's use 4.
Yeah, I'm still having trouble rationalizing the 4 and the 6.7, because we didn't build that many homes.
The best estimate is 6.7, and the administration's saying, because we know some's gonna be higher, some's gonna be lower, let's use 4% on administration's best guess.
Yes.
Because right now it's a guess until the end of February.
I did look at the
Why wouldn't we
last-
use 6.7? Because somebody's gonna get higher and somebody's gonna get lower. So why wouldn't we use the 6.7 as the,
If that's what
I can
we
definitely.
can definitely make
yeah.
that calculation
well,
easily.
doesn't that make sense?
It'll fluctuate
Yeah.
dollars, but no, if you want 6 points,
If it's gonna average 6.7 estimated, then isn't that what you'd use? Because it's gonna be up and down. Why would you pick 4?
What's been our past practice in previous years? What number?
So in our previous years, we actually never accounted for any assessment growth. We only did a mill rate increase. So this is the first year we're anticipating that people are seeing assessment growths. So last year, we just did a straight tax increase from a $400,000 home to a $400,000 home. So this is the first year we're actually anticipating some of those tax increases to try and show you a more accurate number of what they're gonna see as a hit on their monthly charges. And unfortunately, yes, we don't have those average numbers. I did look at what the average number from 23 to 24 22 to 23 and 23 to 24, and a 4% is a little bit higher than both of those numbers, so.
You had somewhere in our binder, Eric, you had a slide that showed like kind of going to what Councillor Bates is saying. There was, the 6.7, whatever it was, and it showed residential was this and non-res was that.
Yep.
And that's why we were at the 6 points. So like Councillor Bates, I'm a little confused. Like I understand it could be higher, it could be lower. But isn't that why we came out at the 6.76%? Because it could be higher or it could be lower? Or can you find that slide, or?
Yeah, so it's under,
Or can you help us find that slide in our book?
So I also think I just heard that we looked at the 4 because that was more in keeping with where we were 2 years ago. Well, that, again, doesn't make sense to me. To me, if we're estimating at 6.7, then it should be 6.7 on this chart.
yep. So we can update that. We do have at minimum $10 million worth of new home builds this past year. That would be new assessment as well. And that's just build costs. When it comes in for assessment costs, it's in no way relation. It's what that house could sell on the open market. But under the assessment increase, we are seeing a total of 6.716. And for a residential, that is an 8.5, and non-residential, it's 2.22.
So I'm taking it then, like, you got that number because you're balancing the residential and non-res.
That's correct,
Right.
like down to the
Okay.
specific assessment classes.
Yeah, so we're not really accounting for the higher, lower.
Yep.
If we feel that there's 8.5% residential increase, like well, this assessment grows on the whole town, it's not just on residential. But,
This
Right,
chart,
these-
this
these-
chart is a residential monthly charges, so this chart should
Well,
reflect.
I think the resident maybe is misleading. It's
Yeah.
just the monthly charges increase that everyone would see. So even businesses are gonna see a utility bill increase, they're gonna
Yes.
see the tax increase, and they're
Yeah.
gonna see the franchise fee increase.
but this is based on,
So maybe
Whatever.
resident is the wrong word, but it should just be increased monthly charges to our customers, maybe. Yeah, and it's based on a $400,000 assessment property.
yeah.
So what would you like to see here?
Don't
We
know.
can make any changes, any different calculations.
Well, I don't know, I think I would like to see 6.716, if that's
Okay.
kind of more the reality. And I think qualitatively, don't have any data, but I think when we see the real estate in the community and what it's selling for, that I think, and I understand there's going to be some areas that will be low, but it's
Okay.
been pretty robust.
So, and I'm sure it's on the charts here, what's our total inventory of assessment?
I don't have that off the top of my head, 1 second. So our total assessed for 2025 as an estimate is $1.3 billion.
Okay, and I think I.
That's everything, so that's res, non-res, and M&E.
Yep, and then I think you said you had an estimate for how much was new, 10.
Approximately $10 million
Okay,
is
so
just,
put that 10 against that total inventory, and that tells you the amount of new is almost nothing.
for the total assessment, yes.
Right.
but When we're looking at
So
assessment
the average is
increase,
6.7, that's the kind of order of magnitude number that should be here, in my opinion. And that's probably light if residential is 8.
Did you want to take a break and change that, or?
Yeah, it
or-
won't take me too long, maybe
Okay, sure.
5-ish minutes. Did you want to go over the other sheet before we do that?
Sure.
Or what would you like
Sure,
to? Okay.
for sure, thanks.
Okay, so we did a little bit of data collecting. So we have in the municipalities that we discussed, so Sylvan Lake, Black Falls, Red Deer County, the City of Red Deer, Olds, Lacombe, Rocky Mountain House, Penhold, Bowden, and then finally Innisfell. I did put Innisfell with the blue lines just to make sure that everyone could kind of see that what Innisfell is. So we'll just go through the different columns just to show what everything means. So the first column is directly from the 2021 population census, and so we have identified that, and then identified the growth rate from 2016 to 2021. We did pull the population from 2023 from the Alberta Regional Dashboard. I just did want to identify that because, as you can see, Innisfell is sitting at 8540 with a 2.4% growth rate in 23, which maybe is not quite accurate, but, so we do have those numbers there. We did do a bit of research on FTEs per population. And so some of the research kind of says that larger cities, anywhere from 6 to 8 FTEs is kind of appropriate. Sometimes for smaller municipalities that have to provide more service levels, such as water and utilities and snow removal, anywhere between 8 and 11 FTEs per 1,000 residents is kind of the average. So if we're sitting at that nine per 1,000 residents, we should be sitting at 76 or 77 staff members. So with us having 71 this year, we're still kind of under the mark. We did identify the ATCO Gas franchise fee, and then you can see that there is a secondary ATCO Gas franchise fee. So ATCO Gas does not pay taxes for their lines like everyone else does. The way that municipalities can capture those dollars rather than just funding it from themselves is to do a secondary ATCO Gas franchise fee percentage that's a little bit smaller. So you can see on that line that Sylvan Lake has a 32% ATCO Gas franchise fee and a 2.8 secondary ATCO Gas franchise fee to pay for their taxes.
Can you explain that some more, Erica? Like I don't get that.
Yeah, so ATCO Gas does not pay their taxes for the lines that run through. They do for like their buildings, but for the actual lines, they don't pay taxes. It's in the franchise fee agreements. They don't. But what they do is they allow, there's a way for municipalities to recover that so they're not eating it themselves. And by doing that is to do a secondary franchise fee for a smaller percent that would build up and make up our franchise fee.
So
Or the
should we be
taxes.
looking at something like that? Like I've never heard of that before, so
We
or I
could.
wasn't aware of it, so.
Yeah, when we did our most recent ATCO Gas franchise update, we elected to not do that. We never had, and it is becoming more common, as you can see. So next time it comes up, it is something that we will discuss, but we are locked into an agreement for it right now. But our tax estimate, I believe, is $59,000 for 2025. We do see Fortis, and I say Fortis, but it is the electric franchise fee, so you can see that all those numbers are there. City of Red Deer they don't have Fortis, they kind of do their own thing, so they have their own local access fee that I'm assuming is similar to what the franchise fee is, to what other residents pay.
Well, they own their own system.
Pardon me,
They
sorry.
own their own system.
Yes,
so,
yes.
yeah.
So the next items, I did bring out assessment values for these properties. These are pulled from their 2024 tax bylaw. So you can see residential. Now, residential would include things like farmland, any multifamily tax rate. So it's anything residential would be there, and then anything non-residential, and then we do have M&E, and then a total assessment based. Then I further went down and found out their equalized assessment, which the province does to kind of balance out and equal out everyone's assessment, because that is the way that we do pay for our school tax. So they need to make sure that Innisfil and Bowden, let's say, are assessing our properties in the same way. So for example, if we assess ours on July 1st, but Bowden does theirs on December 1st, we're not assessing at the same market conditions. So then the province will do some adjustments to make sure that it's effectively every person is assessed in the same way on the same date under the same terms. And then they use those numbers to attribute fairness for property, or for the school tax requisitions. We did do some different FTE kind of calculations. We don't have a couple. The FTEs we did have to reach out to communities directly. That wasn't something that was easily found online, so not everyone did provide us with some answers there. And then we get into the tax rates. So we do have, these are all from their 2024 tax bylaws. So we have the residential tax rate. Some have a vacant residential tax rate. Some have specific farmland tax rates. And then we have a non-residential tax rate. We've seen one area in Rocky Mountain House has a small business tax rate, which is quite a bit lower than their non-residential tax rate. And then we have an M&E tax rate. And then we have their tax split for 2024, so you can see the breakdown for each of the corresponding municipalities. And you can see that Innisfil is sitting at 72 to 28. And I did just kind of pull out our last couple of years for that, and we're at 72 or 73%. Since 2020. So it kind of fluctuates up or down 1%, but we've kind of static since 2020 in that split number. We went to their budget and pulled out their specific 2024 expenditures, just to kind of identify what that is.
So Director Vickers, can I ask a question? Because like with Red Deer County and their residential rate, sorry, I lost it now on the screen, where it was, 4 point something?
Yes. Yeah, 4.35.
Okay, because in their information, their residential for 2024 rate is 2.46.
So they
is
have
that,
additional mills for, like, they
Okay.
have a recreation levy and a
so
protective
can we do
service.
that? Like is that separated on, that's separated on their tax
It
bill?
is, yes.
They don't supposed to do that. It was confirmed at the recent meeting with the deputy minister at a LGAA CO meeting. You get slapped with a letter, but municipalities still maintain doing that. A few do, but we have a letter acknowledgement from the minister that we are in breach of. I'm not saying Red Deer County is. I'm just saying, from my understanding, is we don't supposed to do it.
In our discussions with municipal affairs about tax mill rates and how we can break those down in our bylaw, they have identified that, well, we don't actively search out this, but if you have any municipalities that you know this, let us know. So we said we did not know. But so we did have to, we wanted to index that up, so the real mill rate is quite a bit higher. So we wanted to include a lot of those additional mill rates in that. However, you can see for Red Deer County, their farmland is quite a bit higher than their residential. So on a standard property, only a small section where their homestead is would be earmarked as residential, and then the rest would be balanced out as farmland.
Yeah. And I won't comment on that part.
It is interesting to look at these. One that jumps out to me, and I'm not sure why, is Olds' residential rate is so low. I did notice their franchise fees were high, at least they were on ATCO. And then the discovery of the second ATCO fee is interesting. So because they don't pay taxes, our way of recovering it is to put the taxes on our residents. It's ironic. Now, I guess if they did pay taxes, they would put that fee on our residences. That's how they would pay them. Thank you.
So again, we did find their expenditures from their most recent budget. Obviously, that doesn't account for any budget adjustments or any other things that may have happened throughout the year. And then we were able to find some full-time FTEs. We did reach out and call most of these municipalities. The City of Red Deer, we pulled this directly from their union document. So it may be a little bit overinflated as not just full-time FTEs. It may include all FTEs as a total number. But all the other numbers are accurate full-time FTEs from those from yesterday. And then we did include all of our utility rates at the end there.
So can I be a bug? Yes, of course, as usual. Can you print this out for us as well?
Sure, it is just quite long,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but yes, we can definitely, we can even email it as well and print it, just so you can have both ways to kind
I'd
of
like
view
to
it.
have it printed today, like if
Yep.
you, I know you're going to go change the other thing, I think the 4 to the 6.
Yep.
And if we could have this printed as well, because it's really interesting to look at,
Yep.
and where we think that maybe we're so much higher, we're not.
Yeah.
And
Like
might
if
be
you look
room for some
specifically
adjustments.
at the mill rates, right, we are still quite low for our residential tax mill rate. Yes, Red Deer County is a bit lower, but they always
Yeah,
are.
they always are,
tend to
yeah.
always be.
And do we know, well, no, that's good, that's fine, yep.
And just another quick question, and that's with the, if you could go to the ATCO column and the franchise fees, Fortis. So Black Falls is 35%. Do they have a different cap than we have?
No, so we did find, yes, so 35 is the cap for ATCO.
Oh,
And
oh.
then you can have that secondary ATCO percentage, so they're actually at 37.6% for their ATCO gas franchise fee.
Okay, and then the Fortis, it is 20%?
The Fortis is 20, yes.
Yeah.
Red Deer has their own, it's not through
Yeah.
Fortis, so they own their own, so I don't know what their cap is. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's infinite, but.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so changing the assessment growth to a 6.7% increase and update those 4 slides, and then print this document off. Okay, so let's try 10 minutes, maybe? Okay. Okay. to go back, or do you guys? Okay, thank you for everyone's patience. So I was asked to go and update the assessment growth to the 6.7% of what we're seeing, and also provide options for a 2% franchise fee rather than a 1% franchise fee. So we do have the breakdown on the document that I sent you. So on the 4 options for the 1% franchise fee, we do have that franchise fee dollar amount that we're generating, plus then the monthly increase. Then we have the corresponding tax increase and what that monthly increase cost is with the utility increase, so we can actually now see the monthly bill increase will be those numbers there. And then I also indexed it in, if we did a 2% franchise fee, what does that look like? So if we do a 2% franchise fee, then it brings down our tax percentage at the highest number of 1.96% with a monthly increase of $21.12 for a total increase of $28.81. And then it goes down by effectively $50,000 each one as well. So where does anyone have any questions? Sorry, Mayor Beckley, I was unable to add any ATCO gas. I don't, when we want to do those increases, they actually send us the calculator at that point. So I don't know what the monthly bill increase for a 1 or 2% ATCO gas franchise fee. But it would be less impactful than these ones. So we would only identify the 1.96. That might go down to a 1.76 tax increase if we were able to get that 1% franchise fee.
Yeah, I've got a question, Director Vickers. So the first line here, 3.06% tax increase plus 1% franchise increase, monthly increase of $30.80. Is that with the 6 point?
That is correct. All of these numbers
Okay.
here have been, the assessment growth is indexed up to that 6.7% now rather than the 4.
Okay,
So that's why
so-
these numbers are a little bit higher now.
Okay,
than
so this
previously.
number here, $30.80, was 24.11 on the previous sheet. Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
so
that's
now
good, yeah.
basing it that 2% more, 2.7% more in assessment growth, now we're seeing that increased dollar.
Thank you, yeah.
Director Vickers, my question is, it's great to see all this, but the dollar value that we're looking for, that we need to plug the hole in,
So,
is still,
yes, it's still $400,000
Yeah.
that we need, yeah. But the 3 other options below, we are indexing those down that we would need. So we need the $400,000 at the top one. Then the next option would be, we need $350,000. The next one is we need $300,000. And the one after that, we'd need $250,000.
but is that with the adjustments that you've made? And, sorry, too many papers sitting on my desk right now. But
Yeah, so the sheet that I just handed out
Yep.
here, for the assessment growth and the tax increase, it's an indexed of assessment growth of a $400,000 home last year, up by 6.7%. So that's the number, the base assessment number we're using for all of these options. And then we're doing those tax increases, as well as the franchise fee and utility bill increase. So you can see, if you look at the last option on the bottom line, it's a 0.46% increase. We're still seeing a $17 increase per month just on that tax increase alone. Most of that is due to the assessment growth.
But I guess my question is, on one of these sheets, sorry, you showed the adjustments, so areas where you've adjusted already.
Yes.
So
Okay,
the $213,250,
let me just go to that.
right? That is on the first
Yes.
set of slides?
Yep. Can you go up a few slides to slide 8? Right there, yeah.
Right.
Okay. So those are already taken out of the budget.
Okay.
In all
Yeah.
of these numbers, those are
Okay.
all been impacted,
Just
yes.
wanted to check that. So we're really looking for a $200,000, right? Because we were at 4, but you found 213 in savings, so now we're at 2.
Yes, so
Right.
effectively, the numbers in the middle on this screen, 189 for the aquatic center, 200 for reserve, and $30,000 for operational, that's the hole that we're trying to fill right now.
So 309,000 is what we're looking to
For
fill.
a tax increase, that was at the 1% franchise fee dollars. So if we increase that franchise fee to 2%, we only need to 198,000. So that is on the bottom right here on that sheet that I did hand out to you.
Okay, thank you.
So if we do want to lower that tax increase from the 3.06 down to 2.5, 2.02, or 1.56, or under the 2% franchise fee from 1.96, we now have to lower one of those accounts.
And we can do franchise fees in increments too, like
Yeah, we can do a 1, we
1.25
can
or
do a 1.5,
1.5 or.
absolutely.
What are we
Yes.
targeting to? What are we trying to achieve?
I guess I'm just looking at, trying to, those that we don't tax participate in providing services to the community.
Yeah, I guess we're just confirming, what are we, direction was administration 2.5 to 3. Are we
Yeah.
still within that range of what we're trying to achieve?
I am, for sure, but I don't know about everybody else. Yeah, for sure.
And
So
Dwayne,
I think I am. As we left or the day before yesterday, I was content to see the 1% franchise fee. I'm not content to see it go a hell of a lot higher. That's just my personal feeling. For all the reasons that I've always said. And maybe I shouldn't even be arguing it because I'm an electric vehicle owner. I have a fiduciary conflict.
so the way this slide reads is administration's recommending that reserve investment of 200,000 based on the memo. Is that still a priority for council?
So that number is exact, if you add those three in the middle, that's 419 or so, yeah.
Yes, and that does add up to the two numbers on the bottom. So those are the numbers that we need, and the two numbers are where we're getting that from.
Going back to the other assessment amount of 6.76, that's going to change. The increase in the dollars, tax dollars.
No.
So,
Well, how could it not if we're doing 3.06 times? If you're doing a 4% assessment on
Yep.
that other page you showed us,
so these numbers now have the 6.7% increase. So this is just dollars of what we need, and the assessment mill rate is how we achieve it.
Okay.
So the numbers on the final slide and the numbers that are on this sheet are not 4%, it is 6.7%.
That was just a demonstration of the
Yes.
impact to
Okay.
Yes.
taxpayer.
The monthly person.
Yes. So is there anything else you'd like to discuss now, or what would you like to see?
we are well below, like on the ATCO side, we're well below what everybody else is on a franchise fee. And I don't know if there's an appetite to bump that up, like to get rid of the .06,
Yep.
make it a flat 3, but I don't know what that number would be. I think
We can look at that and see what that number is for sure.
we are 10% below some communities because they've got that secondary fee
Yes.
and are recovering
Yes,
ATCO taxes.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe from conversations that I've had with citizens probably over the last 3 or 4 years, and I even heard it yesterday at Cape, coming from Bowden, an acute awareness of the utility fees, and they weren't talking about franchise fees. They were talking about the actual usage being such a small fraction of your utility bill, and everybody now sees all the elements right down to the carbon tax and the GST. So everybody's really looking at that, and I even heard it around the table that I sat at the Brood presentation with businesses. Everybody is not that concerned whether it's this little tax over here, whether it's, they're just looking at the big package. And so when I look at, even when I look at the right-hand column of the last summary sheet that you gave us, which fluctuates from 2496 to 3080, yeah, it's one small blizzard, which I don't eat, but it's still landing in the wallet at the end, and I don't know that it matters how much you disguise it, and to try to work the 3.06 down to 3, that to me, I don't have a need for that. Kind of where we were headed at the end of, yeah, it's just a matter of picking where you want to go with how much you're setting yourself up for future reserves, really. Did we get a further answer as to whether or not, I guess, yeah, you probably didn't work on that specifically, whether or not we thought we were going to book a surplus? You didn't feel like there were any signs that would indicate that we were on a track to,
Yes, that would be different from previous years.
yeah, so we'll probably book a little one, but we can't count on it.
Yes, we are, just want to remember that we are rolling quite a bit over too. So
Yep.
out of that surplus, we're already now identifying like $150,000 that we're earmarking for
Yep.
specific tasks. So that will reduce the available surplus to play around with.
Yep.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. I guess just my comments is that, you know, in a couple of months, when I do have to go out to the community and talk to people about where we landed on this, is it for me to be able to say that we increased the franchise fee, and the rationale behind that was to capture those people that were excluded if we just raised our tax increase. And I think that for a lot of people, they will understand that more, because we're trying to make sure that the entire community is paying for those things, as opposed to just this group, and that group's excluded. So for me, I like the number where we're falling, but I definitely want to see more on the franchise fee as opposed to the tax rate, so.
It does look like it's a little bit cheaper. A 1% franchise fee increase is a cheaper thing for the residents than a 1% tax increase.
Well, it's
'Cause it
way
is spread
cheaper.
out more.
It's way cheaper, like it's $17.
Most of that actually is the assessment growth in there though, because we
But I'm
can't
just
mitigate
saying
that 7.6.
The 1% versus 1%, it's a fraction of
That's right.
what the tax increase is.
Not sure I digested what I just heard. So, Councillor Dunham, were you saying 1%? Are you advocating that we go higher? I personally don't want to go higher because of the other factors that I've already indicated. One of them being GST, don't forget that, and people are starting to look at that too.
Councillor Bates, yes, with
They don't have
respect,
to pay GST on their taxes, they have to pay GST on everything. The bottom line on every utility bill is GST.
absolutely, but when you're looking at that sort of increase, you're looking at really pennies. You're looking at pretty much under a dime, and over a month, that's, to me.
No, but
Yeah,
this,
I think rationalizing, once again, that smaller with a GST is saying to somebody, okay, you're gonna pay an extra 10 cents a month, as opposed to, once again, not capturing the schools, et cetera, with that other tax increase, and I think I can make a much better argument.
Yeah, and I can make that-
rationalize it.
I can make that argument, but I can't seem to get the number. I'm looking for that number as to what percent, when we do increase a franchise fee, what percent are we catching people that we don't catch with a tax increase? I asked that question yesterday and we were unable to get that number. I can accept a 1. I don't want to go higher. Maybe there'll be a good position next year when there's no carbon tax to really go after the ATCO. It'll be a balance.
Your worship, yeah, I can live with the 1% franchise fee, tax increase at 3.06. And as to, capturing those that, like the schools and all the hospital and that, I think the difficulty is, like our administration, we've thrown a lot at them in the last day and a half or whatever, the last 2 days. But I think that I can live with this, and I look at our data that, from other communities, and I think that Innisfil is a reasonable place to live in. And that's how I'm looking at this right now. I think Councillor Dunham has his comments when you're going out to the community is very valid. But what I've been saying the first couple days is it's how we message it to our community as to how underfunded we are as municipalities. It comes down to explaining where we're at, and most municipalities are in this province. And so I think that's the key message as well that we need to have out there, and we need to make sure that we're looking after the needs of a pool, looking after the pool in the next year or two. And I think that what we've done and accomplished, I think we've landed somewhere in my mind, but these are my comments so far. Thank you.
Just wondering, would the budget objective from council's eyes be related to investing immediately in the aquatic center project with that 2% dedication, but also future infrastructure investment of 2%? So basically what I'm seeing in this budget from my eyes is investment of current and future infrastructure. That council's focus is on that. Is that kind of line up from your other administration to?
Yes.
That's what I see in this slide.
Because we're still meeting the asset management plan, right? Or, well, kind of.
So the investment into reserves is still vastly underfunded.
We know
so-
that, yes.
Yeah, so the statement of infrastructure, we are still that $1.6 million lower from
Yeah.
where we need to maintain our current assets as of today. So that's not even increasing that letter grade or?
And not today, no rush. But what I would like to see you do eventually is show us that number if we were doing what we should be doing, funding the $1.6 million shortfall. I want to see a number where we are, well, I guess that would include the operational and the reserves are also subsidizing the pool and the arena, curling rink, et cetera. Because what I heard in a meeting yesterday was there's a belief that municipalities, residents should be funding those things fully. It shouldn't be falling to another level of government. And I think we need that data to show, okay, you can say that, but here's the real picture, because I don't think there's an understanding of what the real picture is in our municipalities of how much we are short, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can bring back the update for you. So we did have a chart in there in regards to current investment. We're on our infrastructure is that $3 million range. And then we had what our capital forecast was. So realistically, based on funding that we're doing, we had that $4 million. But then we did have the big shortfall based on reality of our condition assessments. It's in the $6 million range. So yeah, we're 50% short, and which is a very powerful document for government to see. As a municipality, we're doing the best we can to keep our services, but we're 50% short on funding, and it's not realistic to go to the taxpayers. Like even at 2%, it's a hit, and that's not even close to what it should be, and that's what that document helps support.
But what is that tax increase? Should be 18%.
It'd be in the 12 to 18% range,
Yeah.
is where it should be, but
where it
that's
should
not
be.
realistic.
Yeah,
So,
no, I realize
yeah.
that, but I think, even having a 2-page document that's quick for somebody to read with a chart that
Yep.
we can demonstrate as opposed to somebody pouring through, a whole bunch of pages that they may not have time to, but I think that's so important as we continue to educate other levels of government with our mid-sized town mayors group.
Yeah, we can definitely do
That
that.
data is so important to share, because my perception is, regardless of the fact that we think we've been educating, that there seems to be a misunderstanding of kind of really where things are at, and oh, you can just have your residents pay for that. Well, you know, $30 million aquatic center, or even how important those recreational facilities are to a community even this size. You know, it's important to Calgary, it's just as important to us.
Yeah, definitely, we can provide that. We have it kind of spread out in the document, but yeah, we can provide that on the newest update. Yep.
And then we can calculate what the mill rate would be and what that tax increase is. If we were to do it all in 1 year, what that jump would actually look like. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Your Worship, as to the, I think Innisfail, I wasn't at the last Alberta Munis event. I think it was very bold of us to present that resolution, and unfortunately it didn't pass. And I don't think the current government cares. That's it. And I think that we need to educate. And so I know that it's always, I'm finding that Innisfail's leading and everybody else is we're all playing chicken with the government. And unfortunately, we gotta, or fortunately we lead, but I always get concerned when everybody else is ducking. And that's how I'm seeing it.
Well, I would argue with that. I mean, we had a meeting yesterday, 14 Central Alberta mayors with the Premier and Minister McIver, and so I would say definitely not ducking anybody in that group. And I was really impressed with the fact they are listening, and they want to continue this dialogue and understand more. So I think it's really imperative that we provide data to go along with that dialogue, because you can have an ask, but let's back it up with facts.
Yep.
And everybody's a little bit different, right? But the topics are recreation, water, wastewater. We're all different because of wastewater. We're on the regional line, others aren't. And how does that play into everything? And just, I think with the Water Commission people that are here, there's, communities that are having to build reservoirs and everything else, and nobody has the funding to do it. Or we're also looking at development now. So back in the old days, that developer maybe came in and upfronted all the costs, where that seems to have changed now, where we're having to upfront the costs. One of the communities last night talked about they're preparing a school site. It's $3 million to prepare the school site, and they will never get that money back because it's for a school. So it's just, it was good dialogue, like really good dialogue. And
Mayor Barclay, can you just go back to that conversation and a comment you made earlier? Their comment back about taxpayers should be funding, were they just purely talking about recreation facilities, or were they talking about shortfalls and infrastructure deficit in general?
I think there's a misunderstanding of like the infrastructure and maybe, you look at the Edmonton Calvarys and the costs are massive, and so maybe they think, a mid-sized town, maybe that's a little bit different, but it's all relevant, right? It's when we're replacing the sanitary force main, and it's $1 million project, in Calgary, it's much larger and a higher figure, but it's still a huge impact. And so, yeah, I think it's more, I believe firmly in education and showing people the data and how things work, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, we need this. And I mean,
Your Worship, I'm good with that too. It's just, my point was making sure that you have other municipalities rowing the same way and communicating the same way. And that's where I see, we're trying to do our best to lead that with all those groups. But yeah, it's, I guess we'll see in the next couple of years. Thanks.
So so listening to those, and my thoughts are, and I'd like to, not now, but get more of a review of what you heard with that group. But when I watch the media reports on various jurisdictions such as Red Deer or Calgary, or I don't see them focusing on their infrastructure at all at this point. It's more the urgent needs that they have just to, and I'm not saying we should do that. I think we are leading, at least in this atmosphere, we are leading our forward thinking compared to some. And it's very easy when somebody gets a big community rink handed to them and other funding because the voter base is Calgary. That's obvious. Yeah, so I don't feel comfortable that we're not able to just fund the huge tax increase that it would take to look at our infrastructure in what we would do maybe if we were the homeowner. But I do feel that we're trying to get there, and I take some solace from that. And I do believe we need to keep working with the other municipalities, and or if you get this 2-page, try again next year to, well, whenever, try again, that we keep advocating. And I think we need to advocate to our provincial government, to advocate to the federal government. I don't know how much they do, but the GST holiday that was talked about yesterday, if some of that could trickle down to municipalities, that would be huge, rather than throwing it at things that, yeah, that seem frivolous, some of them, the alcohol and whatever, gaming stations. That federal lobby, of course, our provincial government seems to fight rather than lobby, but yeah, deal with it.
I think too that, I think we know that for the most part, people don't move someplace because they don't look at the tax rate and decide whether to move. It's about, well, let's call it the power of place, right? And that's important. So it's important that we keep investing in the community and ensuring. I always remember the email received from a resident, and they moved here because of the aquatic center, but 2 years ago they wouldn't have, because that was their main focus, was to use that center, and the shape it's in now didn't meet what they were looking for. So it's important that yeah, we keep investing and ensuring we keep being an attractive place to live, because we obviously are. So I think we're very competitive, and
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So are we happy where we're sitting? Do we need to make any more adjustments to that number? Are we happy with that 3.06 tax increase and a 1% franchise fee, or are you wanting us to make any other changes? Would you like us to incorporate ACO this year, or maybe hold that off for next year?
See what it is.
I would do it, but I understand that there may not be an appetite. I'm fine either way.
I can at least find the number of what that cost would be and see kind of what that calculation would look like. We do plan on bringing this back on, I believe it's the 2nd, so it's the AMP before council gets passed, so we can discuss any other final changes that hopefully everything will kind of be decided and finished for us when we bring it on the 9th, that it will get final passing. But as it stands, we're really not cutting anything else. We're leaving the financial requirements as is. It's just how we're funding those, and that's kind of what we're still deciding on right now. Okay.
No, I think you've done a great job. Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
perfect.
I have this urge to make one other point. No, I think it's a good time to discuss it. In the summer, we're always faced with the tax levy that and I know it's small. It was in one of our earliest slides, but I think this is a good time to realize why that's there. that we had the industrial area paying for such a small part of their improvement of their paved street, which it unarguably was the right thing to do. But if you took that, if you didn't approve that, you would have to raise this a tiny bit. And yep, but the 3.06 would become 3.16. So it's just that realization. This is the time if you want to plan ahead. So I just make that point because I know that'll come back to us, and when it does, we should think about this day. Thank you.
So I'm happy with where we are. I very much appreciate the work, the huge amount of work that was done before we started meeting, and you've been very responsive, and I appreciate that a lot. So not the time today, I don't think, to talk about how we're going to communicate this out. This is going to come, this is something we can talk about at A&P when this comes forward. But for me, there are some really important stories for us to consider sharing with our community. So yes, we want to educate the government. We also need to educate our community about what some of these, how the basis for some of these really important decisions. So yeah, I'm happy to wait until December to have those chats. But people here, I think we know, and especially when we look at the information received that compares us to other communities, we know, you know, really how fortunate we are. But I think it's important now to even just to do some snippets around, you know, transportation or the facade and infill program or the bylaw, even just bylaws, and how the, you know, the types of situations that bylaw responds to in an astronomical way. You know, the trees and shrubs program with FCM, like I've written down a list, and like I said, not to talk about today, but that's the most important part for me now is we've done this body of work. It was hard work. I appreciate everyone's comments, but now we need to be able to share that information with our community so they understand why we've done what we've done. That's right. Thank you.
Any more comments from anyone? Okay. Okay. So I think we're done for today, and if you have any comments or concerns, if you share them with CAO Becker, and then he can share them with me to try and account and bring back for that December 4th kind of meeting, and hopefully then everything will be finalized and finished. Any further questions you guys have should be able to be answered that day. And then for a final passing on the 9th, because we do need to have this passed before the end of the year. But yeah, so thank you very much for everyone. I appreciate all your questions. I do. Especially Gab, no.